Welcome to Stamps Old World UK. If you love rare stamps, hidden treasures, and the fascinating history behind the world's most valuable postal issues, then you are in the right place. Today we are taking a close look at one of the most famous classic United States postage stamps ever printed, the beautiful 1857 George Washington 3 cents green stamp. This small piece of paper has survived for well over 160 years and continues to attract collectors from every corner of the world. Many people discover this stamp in an old family album or inherited collection and immediately wonder whether it could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. In today's video, we will explore its history, the important features that determine its value, how to identify different varieties, and what collectors are paying for this stamp in today's market. Make sure you watch until the end, because the final value may surprise you. The stamp shown here is the famous United States 3-cent green stamp featuring the portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. It was first introduced during the 1850s when the American postal system was rapidly expanding across the country. At that time, letters were becoming much more common, and the government needed a reliable postage stamp that ordinary citizens could use every day. The 3-cent denomination quickly became one of the most widely used stamps in American history, making millions of copies necessary to meet public demand. Although millions were printed, finding examples in exceptional condition today is becoming increasingly difficult because most were heavily used and discarded after serving their postal purpose. The portrait of George Washington was chosen because he represented honesty, leadership, and the birth of the United States. His image became one of the most recognized designs in American philately. The elegant engraving shows remarkable detail, especially considering the technology available more than 160 years ago. Collectors admire the fine lines of the portrait, the decorative lettering, and the balanced layout that reflects the craftsmanship of 19th century stamp engravers. Even today, many experts consider this design one of the most attractive classic United States stamps. One interesting feature of the 1857 issue is its perforations. Earlier editions of the 3-cent Washington were printed without perforations, meaning people had to cut each stamp from the sheet with scissors. The 1857 version introduced perforations, allowing stamps to be separated much more easily. This innovation changed stamp production forever and became the standard for postage stamps around the world. Because of this historical significance, the 1857 3-cent Washington holds a special place in philatelic history. Collectors should know that not every 1857 3-cent Washington stamp has the same value. Several factors determine its market price. The first and most important factor is condition. A stamp with bright original color, sharp perforations, clean paper, and no tears or stains is always worth more than a damaged example. Collectors carefully inspect every corner of the stamp because even a small missing perforation can reduce its value significantly. Centering is another major factor. A perfectly centered stamp with equal margins on all sides is much rarer than one where the design touches the edges. The cancellation also plays an important role. Many used examples have heavy black postmarks covering most of George Washington's face. These usually sell for lower prices. However, lightly canceled stamps with clear designs are much more desirable. Some collectors even specialize in attractive historical cancellations from famous American cities or important post offices, making certain postmarks surprisingly valuable. Another important factor is authenticity. Because rare stamps can sell for substantial amounts of money, counterfeit examples exist in the market. Professional collectors often send valuable stamps to expert grading services for authentication and certification. A certified genuine stamp usually attracts much higher prices because buyers have confidence in its authenticity and condition. Now let's discuss today's market value. A heavily used example with faults such as thin paper, missing perforations, stains, or tears may sell for only around $5 to $20. An average used stamp in decent condition commonly sells between $25 and $100, depending on its appearance and centering. A well-preserved used example with strong color and attractive cancellation may reach between $100 and $500 at auction or through specialized stamp dealers. Unused examples are much scarcer because very few people saved mint stamps during the 1850s, and Unused stamp with original gum may sell for several $100s, while premium quality examples often reach $1,000 to $5,000. Exceptionally well-centered certified examples with outstanding preservation have achieved prices exceeding $10,000 in major philatelic auctions. Rare plate varieties, unusual shades, printing errors, or stamps with extraordinary provenance may sell for even higher amounts, especially when multiple serious collectors compete for ownership. Many people believe every old stamp is automatically valuable, but age alone does not determine price. Millions of 3-cent Washington stamps were produced, so rarity depends on specific varieties, condition, and demand. This is why two stamps that appear almost identical can have dramatically different market values. One might sell for only a few dollars, while another could bring several $1,000s simply because of superior condition, better centering, or a rare printing characteristic. If you own one of these stamps, never clean it or attempt to repair it. Washing, pressing, trimming perforations, or adding glue can permanently reduce its value. Professional collectors prefer stamps in completely original condition, even if they show signs of age. Always handle stamps with stamp tongs instead of your fingers to prevent oils from damaging the delicate paper. Store them in acid-free stockbooks or archival quality albums away from sunlight, moisture, and extreme temperatures. Proper storage can preserve a stamp's condition for generations. One fascinating aspect of this stamp is the enormous number of printing varieties that specialists have identified over the years. Differences in shades of green, plate positions, perforation measurements, and paper types provide endless opportunities for research. Advanced collectors spend years studying these tiny differences, making the 3-cent Washington one of the most actively researched classic United States stamps. This continuing interest helps maintain strong collector demand around the world. The global stamp collecting community remains passionate about classic United States issues because they represent an important period in postal history. Collectors from America, Europe, Asia, and many other regions compete for exceptional examples of 19th century stamps. International auctions regularly feature these classic issues, demonstrating their lasting popularity and investment appeal. While the stamp market experiences normal fluctuations, high-quality certified classic stamps continue to attract serious buyers year after year. If you recently inherited a stamp collection from a parent, grandparent, or relative, take your time before selling anything. Many valuable stamps are hidden among ordinary-looking collections. Carefully compare dates, perforations, colors, and watermarks. If you believe your stamp might be rare or exceptionally well-preserved, consider obtaining a professional opinion from a respected philatelic expert or certification service before making any decisions. Spending a little on expert authentication can sometimes reveal a much more valuable item than expected. Remember that market prices change over time depending on collector demand, rarity, condition, auction competition, and the overall stamp market. The values discussed in this video represent general market ranges in today's collecting environment, but an exceptional certified example may sell for considerably more if two determined collectors compete during a major auction. The 1857 George Washington 3-cent green stamp is much more than an old piece of paper. It represents the growth of the United States postal system, the artistry of 19th century engraving, and the enduring passion of stamp collectors around the world. Whether your example is worth $10 or $10,000, every genuine stamp tells a unique story of communication, history, and craftsmanship that has survived for more than a century and a half. Next up, the beautiful United States 3-cent Liberty stamp featuring the iconic Statue of Liberty. This small purple stamp may look ordinary at first glance, but many collectors are surprised to learn that certain examples are becoming increasingly desirable in today's stamp market. If you have discovered one of these stamps in an old collection, inherited album, estate box, or family treasure chest, you may be asking the most important question of all. How much is this stamp worth today in US dollars? In this video, we will uncover the history behind this classic stamp, explain the features that affect its value, discuss the rare varieties collectors search for, and reveal realistic market prices based on today's collector demand. Stay with us until the very end because many people underestimate this stamp. and some examples can be worth far more than expected. The United States 3-cent Liberty stamp is one of the most recognizable definitive stamps ever issued by the United States Postal Service. It features the world-famous Statue of Liberty holding her torch high above New York Harbor, symbolizing freedom, democracy, hope, and opportunity. The inscription, "In God We Trust," appears above the statue, making this design instantly recognizable to collectors throughout the world. The deep violet color, bold engraving, and patriotic design have made this stamp a favorite among American philatelists for many decades. The Statue of Liberty itself is one of the greatest symbols in American history. Gifted by France and dedicated in 1886, it has welcomed millions of immigrants arriving by sea. By placing this monument on a postage stamp, the United States honored the ideals of liberty and freedom while creating a stamp that would travel across the nation and around the world on millions of letters. Every envelope carrying this stamp also carried a small reminder of America's history and values. This 3-cent stamp was produced in extremely large quantities because it paid an important domestic postal rate during its time of circulation. Millions of Americans use this denomination every day for personal letters, business correspondence, greeting cards, and official mail. Because so many were printed, used examples remain common today. However, this does not mean every example has the same value. Condition, printing quality, gum, centering, and special varieties all play major roles in determining how much a collector is willing to pay. One of the first things collectors examine is the centering of the design. A perfectly centered stamp with equal white margins surrounding the image is significantly more desirable than one with uneven borders. Better centering often results in much higher auction prices, especially for mint examples. Collectors also inspect the perforations around the edges. Missing teeth, short perforations, tears, or damaged corners reduce value considerably. Color is another important factor. A stamp with rich, bright violet ink and fresh paper is usually worth more than one with fading discoloration or heavy toning. Exposure to sunlight, moisture, and poor storage conditions can affect the appearance of older stamps. Collectors always prefer stamps that retain their original vibrant color. The cancellation also matters. Used examples with light, neat cancellations that leave the Statue of Liberty clearly visible are generally more desirable than stamps covered by large, heavy black postmarks. Some collectors even search for unusual town cancellations, railway post office markings, or commemorative postmarks that add historical interest. Mint condition examples with original undisturbed gum are especially attractive to collectors. A never-hinged mint stamp, meaning it has never been mounted in an album with a hinge, usually commands the highest prices among standard issues. Even small gum disturbances can influence the final selling price because advanced collectors value originality above everything else. Now let us discuss the market value in today's collecting market. A common used United States 3-cent Liberty stamp in average condition generally sells for between $0.25 and $3. A cleaner used example with attractive centering and light cancellation may sell for $5 to $15. Mint hinged examples often range from $5 to $25 depending on condition. Never hinged mint copies with excellent centering may bring $25 to $75 or even more through specialist dealers or stamp auctions. Professionally graded examples with exceptional centering and superb preservation have sold for $100, $250, or even higher, especially when certified by respected grading organizations. Rare production errors, dramatic misprints, color shifts, imperforate varieties, or unusual plate flaws can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, although these are extremely scarce and are eagerly sought by advanced collectors. Many beginners assume that every old stamp is valuable simply because it has age. In reality, rarity and condition determine value much more than age alone. Since millions of these Liberty stamps were produced, ordinary used copies remain affordable for most collectors. However, exceptional quality examples are much harder to find because many stamps were damaged during postal use or stored improperly for decades. This is why premium quality copies continue to attract strong interest in today's market. Another factor affecting value is professional grading. Expert grading companies carefully examine the stamp under magnification, verify that it is genuine, and assign a numerical grade based on centering, condition, and overall quality. Collectors are often willing to pay significantly more for certified examples because they have confidence in the authenticity and grade. If you believe your stamp is unusually well preserved or has a possible printing error, professional certification may be worth considering before selling. If you own this stamp, proper care is essential. Never attempt to clean it, wash it, press it flat, repair damaged perforations, or add adhesive to improve its appearance. Any restoration usually reduces collector value. Handle stamps only with stamp tongs to avoid transferring skin oils onto the paper. Store them in acid-free albums or archival quality stock books away from moisture, heat, and direct sunlight. Proper storage can preserve a stamp's condition for future generations. The United States 3-cent Liberty stamp also reminds us that even common stamps have fascinating stories. Every example once carried a letter connecting families, businesses, friends, and communities across America. Behind every stamp is a journey through the postal system and a small piece of history that continues to survive decades later. This historical connection is one reason stamp collecting remains one of the world's most enjoyable and educational hobbies. Collectors around the world continue searching for high-grade examples of classic, United States definitive stamps because they represent an important era in American postal history. While common examples remain inexpensive, outstanding specimens with perfect centering, original gum, and exceptional freshness are becoming increasingly difficult to locate. As demand for top-quality material grows, premium examples continue to perform well in major stamp auctions and specialized philatelic sales. If you recently inherited a stamp collection, take time to examine every stamp carefully. Valuable varieties are sometimes hidden among ordinary issues, and many collectors have discovered surprising treasures inside albums that had been forgotten for decades. Compare your stamp with specialized stamp catalogs. Check for unusual printing characteristics, and seek expert advice before selling any potentially valuable item. As always, remember that stamp prices change over time depending on collector demand, market conditions, rarity, certification, and overall condition. The value ranges mentioned in this video reflect realistic market estimates in today's philatelic market. But exceptional examples can sell for considerably more when competitive bidding occurs between determined collectors. The United States 3-cent Liberty stamp is more than just a small piece of paper. It is a symbol of American history, freedom, national pride, and the remarkable craftsmanship of classic stamp engraving. Whether your example is worth a few cents or several $100s, it represents an important chapter in postal history and continues to inspire collectors across the globe. Next up, the beautiful 3-cent Abraham Lincoln stamp. At first glance, it may appear to be just another old purple postage stamp. But this small piece of American history has fascinated collectors for generations. Many people discover this stamp in inherited stamp albums, old family collections, estate sales, or antique shops, and immediately ask one important question. How much is this Abraham Lincoln 3-cent stamp worth today in US dollars? In this video, we will take a detailed journey through the history of this remarkable stamp, examine the features that determine its market value, explain the rare varieties collectors search for, and reveal realistic prices in today's stamp market. Stay with us until the end, because the condition of your stamp could make a very significant difference in its value. The United States 3-cent Abraham Lincoln stamp is one of the most famous definitive stamps ever produced by the United States Post Office. It features a beautifully engraved portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, who is remembered for preserving the Union during the American Civil War and signing the Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln remains one of the most respected figures in American history, making stamps bearing his portrait especially popular among collectors throughout the world. This stamp was issued during the early 20th century as part of a regular series of postage stamps used for everyday mail. During this period, 3 cents paid the standard first-class domestic letter rate, meaning millions of these stamps were printed and used every day. Letters carrying this stamp traveled across the United States and around the world, connecting families, businesses, government offices, and friends. Because of this widespread use, The stamp became one of the most recognizable American postal issues of its era. The design itself is admired for its elegance and fine engraving. Abraham Lincoln's portrait is displayed in remarkable detail, surrounded by an ornate decorative frame that reflects the artistic craftsmanship of American stamp engravers. The rich purple color gives the stamp a distinguished appearance, while the bold numeral 3 in each lower corner clearly identifies its denomination. Collectors appreciate the sharp engraving lines, balanced layout, and historical significance that make this stamp one of the classics of American philately. Although millions of copies were produced, not every Abraham Lincoln 3-cent stamp has the same value. Several important factors determine what collectors are willing to pay today. The most important factor is condition. A stamp with bright original color, clean paper, intact perforations, and no tears, creases, stains, or repairs is always worth considerably more than a damaged example. Collectors carefully inspect every part of the stamp because even minor faults can greatly reduce its market value. Centering is another critical factor. When the printed design is perfectly centered within the perforated borders, the stamp becomes much more desirable. Well-centered examples are surprisingly difficult to find because printing equipment during the early 20th century was not always perfectly aligned. A beautifully centered stamp can sometimes sell for several times more than an off-center copy of the same issue. Collectors also pay close attention to the perforations. Complete, sharp, evenly formed perforations are highly desirable. Missing teeth, trimmed edges, or damaged perforations reduce collector demand. The freshness of the paper is equally important. Stamps that have been stored properly for decades often retain crisp paper and vibrant color, making them much more attractive in today's market. For used examples, the cancellation can significantly influence value. A light, neat postmark that leaves Lincoln's portrait clearly visible is preferred by most collectors. Heavy black cancellations covering the face usually reduce the stamp's desirability. Some collectors specialize in interesting town cancellations, railway post office markings, or historical postmarks that add additional collectible interest. Mint examples are generally worth more than used ones, especially those that still retain their original gum. Never-hinged mint stamps are particularly valuable because they have never been attached to a stamp album using traditional hinges. Their original condition makes them highly desirable among advanced collectors seeking premium quality material. Now let us discuss the market value of this famous stamp in today's collector market. A heavily used example with damage such as tears, stains, missing perforations, or thin spots usually sells for between 50 cents and $5. A clean used example in average collectible condition often sells between $5 and $20. Better quality used copies with excellent centering and attractive cancellations may bring $20 to $75, depending on overall appearance. Mint-hinged examples generally range from $15 to $75. While never-hinged mint examples with bright color and excellent centering commonly sell between $75 and $300. Professionally graded premium examples with outstanding centering and exceptional preservation may achieve $500, $1,000, or even several $1,000s at major stamp auctions. Rare printing errors, imperforate examples, dramatic color shifts, plate varieties, or significant production flaws can command many thousands of dollars, especially when certified by respected philatelic experts. One reason collectors remain fascinated by this issue is the large number of collectible varieties. Specialists study different printings, shades of purple, perforation measurements, watermark varieties, paper types, and plate characteristics. Some seemingly ordinary stamps have turned out to be valuable varieties worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars after careful examination by experts. If you believe you own a valuable example, never attempt to improve its appearance. Do not clean the stamp, wash it, press it flat, repair damaged perforations, or apply adhesive to replace missing gum. Any alteration can permanently reduce its value. Serious collectors always prefer completely original stamps, even if they show some natural signs of age. Proper storage is extremely important for preserving collectible stamps. Handle your stamps only with stamp tongs instead of your fingers to avoid transferring natural skin oils onto the paper. Store them in acid-free albums, archival quality stock books, or protective mounts designed specifically for philatelic collections. Keep them away from direct sunlight, excessive humidity, dust, and heat to preserve their condition for future generations. One of the most rewarding aspects of collecting classic United States stamps is the connection to American history. Every Abraham Lincoln stamp represents an era when handwritten letters were the primary method of long-distance communication. Millions of personal stories, business transactions, family news, and historical documents traveled across the country bearing this very stamp. Today, collectors preserve these tiny pieces of history as reminders of a remarkable period in postal development. The market for classic United States stamps remains strong because collectors worldwide continue searching for well-preserved examples. Auction houses regularly feature premium Abraham Lincoln stamps, and certified high-grade copies consistently attract competitive bidding from experienced philatelists. While common examples remain affordable for beginners, exceptional examples continue to appreciate because of their rarity and increasing demand among serious collectors. If you recently inherited a stamp collection from parents, grandparents, or relatives, take your time before selling anything. Carefully examine every stamp using a magnifying glass, compare it with specialized stamp catalogs, and look for unusual varieties or printing characteristics. Sometimes the most valuable stamps are hidden among ordinary-looking collections, waiting to be discovered after decades of being forgotten. Always remember that stamp values change over time according to collector demand, rarity, condition, certification, and auction activity. The prices mentioned in this video represent realistic market estimates based on today's collector market. But exceptionally rare or perfectly preserved examples may sell for considerably more when multiple collectors compete at auction. The United States 3 cents. Abraham Lincoln stamp is far more than a simple postage stamp. It represents American history, artistic engraving, postal innovation, and the enduring legacy of one of the nation's greatest presidents. Whether your stamp is worth just a few dollars or several $1,000s, it remains a meaningful historical artifact that continues to inspire collectors around the world. Thank you for watching Stamps Old World UK. If you enjoyed learning about the United States 3 cents Abraham Lincoln stamp and its market, value in today's dollar market, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss our latest videos featuring rare stamps, hidden treasures, auction discoveries, valuable collections, and fascinating postal history from around the world. Share this video with fellow stamp collectors and leave a comment below telling us whether you own this historic Abraham Lincoln stamp or if you would like us to review another rare stamp in an upcoming episode. Until next time, keep collecting, keep preserving history, and happy stamp hunting. Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK. Today we are exploring one of the most iconic and historically significant stamps ever issued by Great Britain. If you are passionate about classic stamps, postal history, and discovering the market value of rare collectibles, then you are going to enjoy this fascinating journey. In today's video, we are taking a close look at the beautiful 1966 British General Letter Office commemorative 3-pence stamp featuring Queen Elizabeth II and the famous postal rider. We will explore its history, design, purpose, rarity, and most importantly, its current market value in today's stamp collecting world. Stay with me until the end, because I will also share valuable tips that can help you determine whether your own copy is worth just a few cents or much more. The stamp you are looking at was issued in 1966 to celebrate the 300th anniversary of the General Letter Office, often known simply as the GPO. The General Letter Office was established in 1660 during the reign of King Charles II and played a revolutionary role in organizing postal services throughout England, Scotland, Wales, and eventually across the British Empire. Without the General Letter Office, modern postal communication would not exist in the form we know today. The 1966 commemorative issue celebrated 3 centuries of innovation, communication, and public service. The design of this stamp is instantly recognizable. Printed in a rich violet-purple color, it combines history with modern elegance. On the right-hand side is the youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. This portrait became one of the most recognizable images on British stamps throughout the 20th century. On the left side, we see a mounted postal rider carrying important mail across the countryside. This horseman represents the early days of postal delivery when riders traveled long distances through difficult roads, often facing dangerous conditions to ensure letters reached their destinations. The words General Letter Office are beautifully printed across the lower center, while the dates 1660 and the denomination of 3d appear prominently at the top and bottom of the design. This stamp was designed not only as a postage stamp but also as a tribute to Britain's postal heritage. Millions of these stamps entered circulation, allowing people across the United Kingdom to celebrate an important historical milestone while sending ordinary letters. Because such a large quantity was printed, many examples have survived to the present day. However, their condition plays a huge role in determining their market value. One of the first things every collector examines is the condition of a stamp. A mint stamp with its original gum intact, never mounted in an album with hinges, is usually worth more than a used example that has been through the postal system. Collectors also inspect the centering of the design, the sharpness of the perforations, the brightness of the color, and whether there are any folds, creases, tears, stains, or missing perforations. Even small imperfections can significantly reduce the value of a stamp. Now let us discuss today's market value in United States dollars. A used copy of the 1966 General Letter Office 3d stamp in average condition typically sells for around $2 to $5. A well-preserved used example with clear postal cancellations and excellent centering may reach around $6 to $10. A mint, never-hinged example generally sells between $15 and $40, depending on quality and demand. Complete mint commemorative sets from the 1966 General Letter Office issue often sell for around $5 to $15. Presentation packs or official first-day covers with special cancellations may range from $50 to $70, depending on condition, completeness, and collector interest. Collectors should remember that stamp values change over time. Prices are influenced by demand, auction activity, collector interest, and the overall condition of the stamp. Online marketplaces, stamp dealers, and international stamp auctions all contribute to determining the current market price. While this particular stamp is not considered rare, it remains highly collectible because it commemorates an important event in British postal history and features the beloved portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Many beginners believe that every old stamp is automatically valuable. But age alone does not determine rarity. The 1966 General Letter Office stamp is over half a century old, yet millions were printed, making it relatively common today. Nevertheless, common stamps are an essential part of every serious collection because they tell important stories about history, art, and communication. They are often the foundation upon which larger and more valuable collections are built. There are also several varieties that advanced collectors keep an eye out for. Differences in printing, color shades, paper type, gum, and perforations can sometimes create collectible varieties. Although most examples are standard issues, carefully examining your stamp under magnification can reveal interesting production differences. Professional catalogs such as Stanley Gibbons, Scott, Michel, and Evert and Tellier are valuable resources for identifying these varieties and estimating their value. If you have inherited a stamp collection from a family member, this stamp may be part of a larger commemorative collection from the 1960s. Collections kept in albums, protected from sunlight, moisture, and excessive handling, often maintain their quality much better than loose stamps stored in boxes or envelopes. Proper storage can preserve both beauty and value for future generations. Many collectors also enjoy collecting stamps based on historical themes rather than financial value. This particular stamp appeals to collectors interested in postal history, transportation, horses, Queen Elizabeth II, British history, communications, and royal commemoratives. Its attractive design makes it a favorite among thematic collectors around the world. If you are considering buying this stamp today, you will find it widely available through stamp dealers, online auctions, philatelic fairs, estate sales, and collector exchanges. Because it is affordable, it offers an excellent opportunity for new collectors to own a beautiful piece of British postal history without spending a large amount of money. When evaluating the value of your own copy, always compare it with recently sold examples rather than simply looking at asking prices. Some sellers list common stamps for unrealistic amounts, but actual completed sales provide a much more accurate indication of current market value. Certification is generally unnecessary for ordinary examples of this issue, although exceptional varieties or unusual errors may benefit from professional expertization. As stamp collecting continues to evolve in the digital age, classic British commemoratives like this one remain popular among collectors across Europe, North America, Asia, and Australia. Their historical significance, elegant design, and affordable prices make them excellent additions to both beginner and advanced collections. Every stamp represents a small piece of history that has traveled through time, carrying stories of people, places, and important national events. The 1966 General Letter Office 3 stamp reminds us how communication transformed society long before email, smartphones, and the internet. It honors the hard-working postal riders who delivered messages across challenging landscapes and celebrates 300 years of one of the world's most influential postal systems. Every time we hold this small piece of paper, we are holding a symbol of history, dedication, and progress. Next up, the most famous and elegant British commemorative stamps ever issued. If you are passionate about classic British stamps, the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, and discovering the real market value of vintage postage stamps, then this is a video you will not want to miss. Today we are taking a detailed look at the beautiful 1 shilling, 6 coronation stamp issued on the 2nd of June, 1953 to celebrate one of the most important events in British history, the coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We will explore the fascinating history behind this stamp, its beautiful design, why collectors admire it around the world, and most importantly, what this classic stamp is worth in today's stamp market in United States dollars. Stay with me until the very end, because I will also explain how to identify valuable examples and what collectors should look for before buying or selling this remarkable issue. The stamp you are looking at was issued on the 2nd of June 1953, the same day that Queen Elizabeth II was officially crowned at Westminster Abbey in London. The coronation was one of the most celebrated events of the 20th century and marked the beginning of a reign that would become the longest in British history. Millions of people around the world watched the ceremony on television, making it one of the first major international broadcasts in history. To commemorate this historic occasion, Great Britain released a special set of coronation stamps, and the high-value 1 shilling and 6 issue quickly became one of the most admired stamps of the entire series. The design of this stamp is both elegant and symbolic. At the center is a graceful portrait of the young Queen Elizabeth II wearing the imperial state crown. Surrounding her portrait is an ornate decorative frame that reflects the traditions and artistic style of British stamp engraving. On each side of the portrait are magnificent royal crowns representing the authority and continuity of the British monarchy. Across the top appears the inscription "Postage Revenue," while the royal cipher E2R, meaning Elizabeth II Regina, is displayed prominently. At the bottom of the stamp is the historic date, 2nd June 1953, forever commemorating the coronation day. The denomination of 1 shilling and 6 appears in both lower corners, completing a design that has become a favorite among collectors worldwide. This stamp was printed using high-quality engraving techniques by Harrison & Sons, one of Britain's most respected security printers. The deep blue color gives the stamp an appearance of dignity and prestige, while highlighting the intricate engraved details that are difficult to reproduce even with modern printing technology. Every fine line, decorative ornament, and facial detail demonstrates the exceptional craftsmanship of British stamp production during the early reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Although millions of these coronation stamps were printed to satisfy public demand, they remain highly collectible because of their historical importance. They represent not only the beginning of a remarkable reign, but also an important moment in the history of the British Commonwealth. For many collectors, this stamp symbolizes optimism, renewal, and the beginning of a new era following the difficult years after the Second World War. Now let us discuss the current market value of this stamp in United States dollars. A used example with a normal postal cancellation in average condition generally sells for between 50 cents and $2. A well-centered used copy with light cancellation and excellent appearance can bring between $3 and $6. A mint example with original gum and never hinged condition usually sells between $5 and $15, depending on its overall quality. Exceptionally well-preserved mint copies with perfect centering, brilliant color, and flawless gum may sell for between $20 and $40 through specialist stamp dealers or online auctions. Official first-day covers bearing this stamp often sell between $15 and $50 depending on condition, cachet design, and postal markings. Collectors should understand that condition is everything in stamp collecting. Two stamps that appear almost identical at first glance can have very different values. Collectors carefully examine the centering of the design, the freshness of the paper, the sharpness of the perforations, the brightness of the ink, and whether the stamp has any tears, folds, creases, stains, fading, or missing perforations. Even tiny defects may reduce the value significantly, while a perfectly preserved example can command a premium price. One of the reasons this stamp continues to attract collectors is its connection to Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most influential monarchs in modern history. Her reign lasted more than 70 years, making stamps from the beginning of her reign especially desirable. This coronation issue captures the youthful image of a queen who would become one of the most recognized figures in the world. Advanced collectors also search for printing varieties, shade differences, paper varieties, watermark differences, and unusual production errors. While most examples are standard issues, occasional printing flaws or plate varieties can be worth considerably more than ordinary copies. These varieties require careful examination and are often listed in specialized catalogs such as Stanley Gibbons, Scott, Michel, and Evert and Tellier. Professional expertization may be worthwhile if a collector believes they have discovered an unusual variety. If you own a complete coronation stamp set from 1953 rather than just this single value, the collection becomes even more attractive to collectors. Complete mint sets generally sell for higher prices than individual stamps because collectors appreciate obtaining the entire commemorative issue together. Albums containing original presentation packs or official Royal Mail packaging may also increase collector interest. Many beginning collectors ask whether this stamp is considered rare. The honest answer is that while it is not rare in terms of surviving numbers, it remains highly desirable because of its historical importance, elegant design, and enduring popularity. Demand from collectors continues to keep this stamp relevant in the philatelic market even more than 70 years after its issue. When purchasing this stamp, it is always wise to buy from reputable stamp dealers, established auction houses, recognized philatelic societies, or experienced collectors. High-resolution photographs allow buyers to inspect centering, perforations, gum condition, and any possible faults before making a purchase. Comparing recently completed auction sales rather than asking prices provides the most realistic picture of current market value. The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II was not merely a national event for Britain. It was celebrated throughout the Commonwealth and watched by millions across the globe. This stamp, therefore, represents more than postage. It is a historical document, a work of miniature art, and a lasting tribute to one of the defining moments of the 20th century. Collectors often include this stamp in thematic collections focusing on royalty, coronations, British history, monarchy, engraved stamps, Commonwealth issues, and Queen Elizabeth II. Its timeless appearance ensures that it remains one of the most admired commemorative issues of the early Elizabethan period. As the years continue to pass, beautifully preserved examples become increasingly difficult to find because many stamps have suffered damage from improper storage, humidity, sunlight, or careless handling. Collectors who preserve their stamps in acid-free albums, protective mounts, and climate-controlled environments help maintain both the beauty and potential value of these historic treasures for future generations. Whether your interest lies in history, investment, art, or simply the joy of collecting, the 1953 Coronation 1 shilling and 6 pence stamp deserves a special place in any British stamp collection. It is a reminder of an extraordinary day that shaped modern British history and introduced a monarch whose reign would span generations. Next up, the beautiful 212 pence coronation commemorative stamp issued by Great Britain in 1953 to celebrate the coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. This small but elegant stamp has remained one of the most recognizable British commemorative issues ever produced. In this video, we will uncover the story behind its creation, examine every detail of its beautiful design, discuss its historical importance, and most importantly, reveal its current market value in United States dollars. Be sure to stay until the end because I will also share expert collecting tips that can help you identify valuable examples hidden inside old collections. The stamp you are looking at was issued on the 2nd of June 1953, one of the most historic dates in modern British history. On this day, Queen Elizabeth II was crowned at Westminster Abbey in London following the passing of her father, King George VI. The coronation was a magnificent event attended by world leaders, members of royal families, diplomats, and thousands of invited guests. More importantly, it became the first British coronation to be televised, allowing millions of people across the United Kingdom and around the world to witness the ceremony from their own homes. It marked the beginning of a reign that would continue for more than 70 years, making Queen Elizabeth II the longest reigning monarch in British history. To celebrate this extraordinary occasion, the British Post Office issued a special set of commemorative stamps. Among them was this attractive 212 pence value, printed in a striking bright red color that immediately catches the eye. Although it carried a relatively low postal value, it has become one of the most collected stamps from the coronation issue because of its beautiful design and historical significance. The design of this stamp is truly impressive. At the center is a graceful portrait of the young Queen Elizabeth II wearing the imperial state crown. Her portrait is surrounded by elegant decorative floral ornaments representing the beauty and dignity of the British monarchy. On both sides of the portrait are magnificent royal crowns symbolizing authority, continuity, and centuries of constitutional tradition. The words "postage revenue" appear across the lower portion of the design, reminding collectors that British stamps have long served both postal and revenue purposes. The denomination of 2 pence halfpenny appears prominently in the lower left corner, making it instantly recognizable to collectors around the world. One fascinating feature of this stamp is its rich symbolism. The decorative floral branches surrounding the Queen represent prosperity, peace, and national unity. The crowns emphasize the continuity of the British monarchy stretching back hundreds of years. Every artistic element was carefully chosen to celebrate not only the coronation itself, but also the beginning of a new chapter in British history. The stamp was produced using high-quality printing methods by Harrison & Sons, one of Britain's leading security printing companies. The detailed engraving, balanced composition, and vibrant red ink demonstrate the exceptional craftsmanship that made British stamps admired throughout the philatelic world. Even after more than 70 years, the fine details remain sharp on well-preserved examples, making this issue a favorite among collectors of engraved stamps. Now let us discuss what collectors are most interested in today: the current market value in United States dollars. Because millions of these stamps were printed to satisfy public demand during the coronation celebrations, they remain relatively common today. However, condition makes an enormous difference in determining value. A used copy with an ordinary postal cancellation and average condition generally sells for between 10 cents and 75 cents. A very clean used example with light cancellation, excellent centering, and bright color may sell for around $1 to $3. A mint never-hinged copy with original undisturbed gum typically sells for between $2 and $8 depending on quality. Exceptional mint examples with perfect centering, flawless gum, and outstanding freshness may sell for $10 to $20 through specialist dealers or philatelic auctions. Complete mint coronation sets, including all denominations, often achieve prices between $15 and $40, depending on overall condition. Official first-day covers bearing this stamp usually sell for between $10 and $35, while presentation packs in excellent condition may command even higher prices from collectors. Specializing in Royal Mail commemorative issues. Collectors. should always remember that the condition of a stamp is one of the biggest factors affecting its value. Experienced philatelists carefully examine every detail before making a purchase. They inspect the centering of the design, making sure the white margins are even on all sides. They check that all perforations are complete and undamaged. They look for bright original colors without fading, clean paper free from stains or foxing, and original gum without hinge marks on mint examples. Even small faults such as creases, thin spots, missing perforations, or discoloration can reduce the value considerably. Although this stamp is not considered rare, it remains one of the most desirable commemorative issues from the early reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Its popularity comes from its historical importance rather than scarcity. Collectors around the world appreciate owning a genuine piece of history that commemorates one of Britain's most significant royal ceremonies. Advanced collectors often search for printing varieties, shade differences, paper types, watermark variations, perforation differences, and production errors. Some minor varieties have become collectible over the years, particularly when documented in specialized catalogs. Collectors frequently consult reference books such as Stanley Gibbons, Scott, Michel, and Evert and Tellier to identify these varieties and estimate their market value accurately. Another reason this stamp remains so popular is its connection with Queen Elizabeth II herself. Throughout her remarkable reign, she appeared on thousands of stamp designs issued not only by Great Britain but also by Commonwealth countries around the world. Early portraits from the beginning of her reign are especially admired because they capture the youthful queen at the start of an extraordinary journey that would shape modern history. Many collectors enjoy assembling complete coronation collections that include stamps from Great Britain as well as commemorative issues released by Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Pakistan, Ceylon, and numerous other Commonwealth countries. Together, these collections tell the story of a worldwide celebration that united millions of people across continents. If you discover this stamp inside an inherited collection, do not assume it has little value simply because it is common. While individual copies may be affordable, complete collections preserved in excellent condition often attract significant collector interest. Albums that have remained untouched for decades may contain scarce varieties, unusual postal cancellations, or other valuable stamps that deserve closer examination. Proper preservation is extremely important. Store your stamps in acid-free albums or protective mounts away from direct sunlight, excessive humidity, dust, and temperature changes. Always handle stamps with stamp tongs rather than fingers to avoid transferring oils onto the paper. Good storage practices help preserve both beauty and market value for future generations. The 1953 coronation issue represents much more than a simple postage stamp. It is a miniature work of art that celebrates national pride, constitutional tradition, and one of the most remarkable reigns in world history. Every detail of the design reflects Britain's rich heritage and the optimism that surrounded the beginning of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Even today, more than 7 decades after its release, collectors continue to seek this beautiful stamp for its artistic quality, historical importance, and affordability. Whether you are a beginner building your very first British collection or an advanced philatelist specializing in royal commemoratives, this stamp deserves a place in your album. Its combination of elegant engraving, royal symbolism, and historical significance ensures that it will remain one of the classic commemorative issues of British philately for generations to come. Every time a collector looks at this stamp, they are reminded of a historic day that marked the beginning of a reign unlike any other in British history. Thank you for watching another episode of Stamps Old World UK. I truly appreciate every one of you who joins me on these journeys through the fascinating world of stamp collecting. If you enjoyed learning about the history, design, and current market value of this beautiful 1953 Queen Elizabeth II Coronation 2/1 pence stamp, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing to Stamps Old World UK, and turning on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos featuring rare British stamps, valuable Commonwealth issues, hidden philatelic treasures, auction results, collecting guides, expert market value updates, and remarkable stories behind the world's greatest stamps. Please leave a comment below and tell us whether you own this classic coronation stamp, what condition it is in, and which British or international stamp you would like to see featured next. Your comments help build our wonderful community of stamp collectors from around the world. Thank you once again for watching Stamps Old World UK. Until next time, happy collecting. Protect your stamps carefully. Continue exploring history one stamp at a time. And may every stamp in your collection tell an unforgettable story for generations to come. Welcome to Stamps Old World UK. Today, we are exploring one of the most famous and recognizable postage stamps ever issued by the United States Postal Service, the classic 1-cent George Washington stamp. This small green stamp has been treasured by collectors for generations and remains one of the most collected stamps in the world. Although millions of these stamps were printed, their history, different varieties, and current market values make them fascinating collectibles. In today's video, we will explore the history of this iconic stamp, why it was issued, how to identify valuable varieties, and most importantly, how much it is worth in today's stamp market. Stay with me until the end, because some rare versions of this common-looking stamp have sold for hundreds and even thousands of dollars. The stamp shown here features George Washington, the first president of the United States, who served from 1789 to 1797. Washington has appeared on more American stamps than any other person because of his enormous importance in American history. His image became a symbol of patriotism, leadership, and national pride. The simple yet elegant design of this stamp has become one of the most recognizable stamp designs ever created. The green 1-cent George Washington stamp belongs to a long-running series of definitive stamps that were issued during the first half of the 20th century. Definitive stamps are everyday postage stamps printed in very large quantities for regular mail. Unlike commemorative stamps, which are issued for a limited time, definitive stamps remain available for years and often have many printing variations. Because these stamps were printed over many years using different printing methods, paper types, watermarks, perforations, and shades, collectors spend years studying the differences between them. At first glance, many people believe all 1-cent George Washington stamps are identical. However, experienced collectors know this is far from the truth. Small differences in perforation size, watermark, printing process, paper quality, gum, color shade, and even tiny design details can significantly affect a stamp's value. Two stamps that appear almost identical may have completely different market prices depending on these characteristics. The stamp in today's image displays George Washington facing right, surrounded by a simple green frame with the words United States Postage printed at the top, and George Washington 1789-1797 beneath the portrait. The denomination of 1 cent appears in both lower corners. The clean design reflects the engraving skills of American security printers during that period. Even after many decades, the engraving remains sharp and beautiful, making it attractive to collectors worldwide. One of the reasons this stamp is so popular is because nearly every American family once had one. Millions of letters, postcards, newspapers, and printed materials were mailed using this 1 cent denomination. Because it was so widely used, billions of copies were printed. This means that most surviving examples are common, but finding one in exceptional condition or with a rare printing variety is much more difficult. Now let's talk about today's market value, which is the question most collectors want answered. If you have a used 1-cent George Washington stamp with a normal cancellation, average centering, and no rare variety, its market value today generally ranges from around 25 cents to $2 depending on condition and collector demand. These stamps are very common, so they are affordable for beginners entering the hobby. If you have a mint example with its original gum still intact and never hinged, the value increases significantly. A well-preserved mint stamp can typically sell between $5 and $25, depending on the exact catalog number, printing variety, and overall condition. Collectors always pay more for stamps that have never been used and retain fresh original gum. Condition plays one of the biggest roles in determining value. A stamp with bright color, clean paper, sharp perforations, and perfectly centered margins will always command a higher price than one with heavy cancellations. Damaged corners, creases, tears, stains, missing perforations, or thin spots. Professional collectors carefully examine every detail before purchasing a stamp. Even tiny faults can reduce value dramatically. Centering is especially important. Many older stamps were printed with uneven margins because printing technology was not as precise as it is today. If George Washington's portrait appears perfectly centered within the frame with equal margins on all sides, collectors consider it a premium example. Perfect centering alone can multiply the value several times compared to an average copy. Another important factor is the printing method. Some 1-cent Washington stamps were printed using flat plate printing, while others were produced using rotary presses. These printing methods created subtle differences in stamp dimensions and design appearance. Specialized collectors spend years learning how to identify these differences because certain rotary press issues are much scarcer than their flat plate counterparts. Watermarks are another major factor affecting value. Earlier issues contain watermarked paper, while later issues were printed without watermarks. Identifying the watermark correctly can completely change a stamp's catalog number and market value. Collectors often use watermark fluid or special detection trays to identify these hidden features safely without damaging the stamp. Perforation measurements also matter. Different printings have different perforation gauges. A variation of only 1 or 2 perforation holes across 2 centimeters can separate a common stamp worth less than $1 from a much scarcer variety worth several $100s. Professional stamp collectors use perforation gauges to make accurate identifications before assigning value. Color shades can also influence value. Although this stamp appears green, specialists recognize multiple shades ranging from yellow-green to bluish-green and deeper emerald tones depending on the printing period and ink mixture. Certain shades are much scarcer than others and may bring premium prices among advanced collectors. Collectors should also pay attention to cancellations. A lightly canceled stamp that clearly shows George Washington's portrait is generally more desirable than one covered by a heavy black cancellation. However, certain historic postmarks from small towns, military mail, railroad mail, or early postal routes may actually increase a stamp's value because of their historical significance. One exciting area of collecting involves plate flaws and printing errors. During the printing process, damaged plates sometimes produced stamps with broken lines, missing details, shifted colors, double impressions, or unusual inking patterns. Genuine printing errors are highly collectible and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their rarity and condition. Now let's discuss some of the highest values seen for rare examples. While ordinary used copies may sell for less than $1, scarce varieties with excellent centering, rare perforations, unusual watermarks, or certified printing errors have sold for several $100s. The rarest examples in superb mint condition with professional certification have reached prices well into the thousands of dollars at major stamp auctions. This demonstrates why careful identification is so important before assuming any stamp is common. Professional grading services have become increasingly important in today's stamp market. A certified stamp receives an independent evaluation of its authenticity and condition. Buyers have greater confidence purchasing certified material, especially when the value reaches several hundred or several $1,000s. High-grade certified examples consistently achieve stronger prices than uncertified stamps. If you have inherited a collection containing 1-cent George Washington stamps, do not separate them or discard duplicates too quickly. Many valuable varieties look almost identical to ordinary examples. It is always wise to examine each stamp carefully or consult a knowledgeable philatelic expert before deciding its value. A careful inspection could reveal a hidden treasure among what appears to be an ordinary group of stamps. The popularity of George Washington stamps continues to remain strong because they represent an important chapter in American postal history. Collectors appreciate their beautiful engraving, historical importance, numerous varieties, and affordable entry point into classic United States philately. Whether you are a beginner or an experienced collector, these stamps provide endless opportunities for learning and discovery. The global stamp market has changed significantly in recent years. Online marketplaces, specialized stamp dealers, international auctions, and philatelic exhibitions have made buying and selling stamps easier than ever before. While common 1-cent Washington stamps remain inexpensive, demand for premium quality examples, rare varieties, certified errors, and exceptional centering continues to grow among serious collectors around the world. If you own this stamp, examine it carefully under good lighting using a magnifying glass. Check the perforations, paper, watermark, cancellation, centering, color, gum if unused, and overall condition. These details will determine whether your stamp is worth less than $1 or potentially hundreds of dollars. Never clean or repair an old stamp, because doing so usually reduces its collector value significantly. Every stamp tells a story, and the 1-cent George Washington stamp tells the story of everyday communication in America for millions of people across many decades. It carried family letters, business documents, newspapers, greeting cards, and countless personal messages. Today, it continues its journey, not through the mail, but through stamp collections where it preserves a remarkable piece of postal history. Next up, the 1-cent George Washington stamp represents one of America's most important historical figures. George Washington, the first President of the United States, served from 1789 to 1797 and played a vital role in the founding of the nation. Because of his immense historical significance, his portrait has appeared on more United States postage stamps than any other American leader. His image symbolizes leadership, freedom, and the birth of the United States, making this stamp a favorite among collectors around the world. The Teal stamp shown in today's video belongs to the famous Presidential and Liberty Definitive, issues that were produced during the mid-20th century. Unlike commemorative stamps that celebrate special events and are printed for a limited period, definitive stamps are produced in enormous quantities for everyday postal use. These stamps remained in circulation for many years and became an essential part of daily American life, carrying millions of letters across the country every single day. Although billions of 1-cent Washington stamps were printed, collectors know that not every stamp is the same. Small differences in printing, perforations, paper, gum, color shade, and production methods have created dozens of collectible varieties. These tiny details often separate a common stamp worth only a few cents from a rare variety worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That is why experienced philatelists always examine these stamps very carefully before determining their true value. The design itself is both elegant and timeless. The finely engraved portrait of George Washington displays remarkable detail, from the texture of his hair to the folds of his clothing. The dark green engraving stands out beautifully against the lighter green background, while the simple border gives the stamp a classic appearance that has remained popular with collectors for generations. Even today, stamp enthusiasts admire the craftsmanship that went into producing such detailed engraved stamps without modern printing technology. Now let's discuss the current market value, which is the most frequently asked question by collectors. The majority of used examples of this 1-cent George Washington stamp remain quite affordable because of the enormous number printed. A typical used example with average centering and a normal cancellation usually sells for approximately 25 cents to $2 in today's market. These prices may vary depending on the country, dealer, and demand, but most ordinary copies remain inexpensive and are ideal for beginner collectors. If your stamp is in mint condition with its original gum intact and has never been hinged, the value increases considerably. A well-preserved mint example generally sells between $5 and $30, depending on the exact issue, printing variety, and overall quality. Collectors place a premium on stamps that have survived in original condition without being used through the postal system. However, condition is everything in stamp collecting. A stamp with bright, fresh color, sharp perforations, clean paper, excellent centering, and no creases or tears will always command a higher price than one with faults. Damage, such as missing perforations, thin spots, stains, heavy cancellations, folds, or repaired areas, can significantly reduce the market value. Even a small crease invisible to the naked eye may lower the price by more than half. Centering is another extremely important factor. When the design is perfectly centered within the perforated margins, collectors consider the stamp to be of premium quality. Many older United States stamps were poorly centered during production, making perfectly centered examples much scarcer. A perfectly centered mint stamp can sometimes sell for several times more than an off-center example of the very same issue. 1. Fascinating aspect of collecting these stamps is identifying the various printing methods used during production. Some were produced using flat plate printing, while others were printed using rotary presses. Although the differences are very small, experienced collectors measure the size of the printed design to determine the exact variety. Rotary press issues can be either common or scarce depending on the specific catalog number, making careful identification extremely important. Collectors also study the perforations very carefully. Perforation gauges measure the number of perforation holes within 2 centimeters. Two stamps may look identical, yet a different perforation measurement can place them into completely different catalog listings. Some perforation varieties are very common, while others are surprisingly scarce and highly sought after by advanced collectors. Color shade is another feature that affects value. Although this stamp is generally classified as green, specialists recognize multiple shades ranging from yellow-green to deep emerald green. These differences occurred because of changes in ink mixtures during different printings. Rare shades often attract strong interest from specialists and may command premium prices at auction. Paper quality also plays an important role. Different printings use different paper stocks, and some early issues include watermarked paper, while later issues were printed without watermarks. Identifying the watermark correctly can completely change the stamp's catalog number and market value. Professional collectors use special watermark fluid and perforation gauges to make accurate identifications without damaging the stamp. Now let's talk about the exciting possibility of rare varieties. Although the majority of these stamps are common, genuine printing errors and unusual production varieties are highly collectible. Errors such as inverted watermarks, dramatic color shifts, double impressions, missing design elements, imperforate examples, or major plate flaws can increase the value dramatically. Some certified error stamps have sold for several $1,000s at major philatelic auctions. In today's market during 2025, the average used example of this stamp generally sells for between 25 cents and $2. Nice mint examples usually range from $5 to $30. Very fine examples with exceptional centering often sell between $50 and $200. Scarcer identified varieties may reach several $100s, while certified rare varieties and genuine printing errors have achieved prices from $1,000 to well over $10,000 depending on rarity, condition, and collector demand. Professional grading has become increasingly important in the modern stamp market. Expert organizations examine stamps to confirm authenticity, identify the exact catalog variety, and assign a numerical condition grade. Certified stamps inspire greater buyer confidence and often achieve significantly higher auction prices than uncertified examples. Serious collectors are usually willing to pay substantial premiums for stamps that have been professionally authenticated. If you own one of these George Washington stamps, do not assume it has little value simply because it appears common. Carefully inspect every detail using a magnifying glass. Check the centering, perforations, gum, watermark, printing method, color shade, cancellation, and overall condition. Two nearly identical stamps may have completely different values based on these characteristics. Spending a few minutes identifying your stamp correctly could make a remarkable difference in its true market value. Another important piece of advice for collectors is never to clean, soak, bleach, or repair old stamps in an attempt to improve their appearance. Professional collectors and dealers can usually detect alterations, and repaired stamps almost always sell for significantly less than original examples. Preserving the stamp in its original condition is always the best choice for maintaining its long-term value. The popularity of George Washington stamps continues to remain strong among collectors throughout the world. They represent an important chapter in American postal history and offer collectors an opportunity to study engraving techniques, printing technology, postal rates, and historical development across many decades. Whether you are building your first stamp collection or expanding an advanced United States collection, these stamps remain an essential and fascinating area of philately. As interest in classic stamps continues to grow worldwide, collectors increasingly search for premium quality examples with outstanding centering, fresh color, original gum, and certified authenticity. While common examples remain affordable for beginners, the finest surviving examples continue to appreciate because of their rarity and demand among serious philatelists. This balance between affordability and the possibility of discovering rare varieties makes the George Washington 1-cent stamp one of the most exciting stamps to collect. Every stamp tells a story, and this beautiful 1-cent George Washington stamp tells the story of American history, communication, craftsmanship, and everyday life. It traveled on millions of letters, connected families and businesses, and became one of the most familiar symbols of the United States Postal Service. Today, it continues its journey through the collections of stamp enthusiasts who preserve these tiny pieces of history for future generations. Next up, the famous 1932 George Washington Bicentennial 1 2-cent stamp. At first glance, it may look like just another vintage postage stamp. But this remarkable issue celebrates one of the greatest figures in American history and marks an important milestone in the world of philately. We will uncover the fascinating history behind this stamp, explain why it was issued, discuss the features that collectors should examine carefully, and reveal its current market value in today's stamp market. Be sure to watch until the end because while many examples are affordable, certain rare varieties and exceptional condition examples have sold for impressive prices at major stamp auctions. The stamp you see features George Washington wearing the military uniform of a Revolutionary War officer. This portrait is based on one of the most famous paintings of Washington and reflects his role as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army before becoming the first President of the United States. The years 1732 and 1932, printed on the stamp, commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. This bicentennial celebration was one of the largest national commemorations in American history, and the United States Post Office honored Washington with a magnificent series of commemorative stamps featuring different portraits and colors. The 112-cent George Washington Bicentennial stamp was issued in 1932 to pay the third-class domestic postage rate that was in effect at the time. Unlike ordinary definitive stamps that remained on sale for many years, this commemorative issue was released specifically to celebrate Washington's bicentennial and became part of a larger series that included 12 different stamp denominations. Each denomination displayed a unique portrait of George Washington taken from famous paintings created during his lifetime. Because of this artistic variety, the 1932 Bicentennial series remains one of the most admired commemorative stamp issues in United States postal history. One of the most striking features of this stamp is its rich, brown color combined with the finely engraved portrait. The intricate engraving captures remarkable facial detail, the texture of Washington's military coat, and the elegant decorative border surrounding the design. Even after more than 90 years, collectors continue to admire the exceptional craftsmanship demonstrated by the engravers of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Every tiny line was carefully engraved by hand before the printing plates were prepared, making these stamps miniature works of art. Although millions of these stamps were printed, collectors know that condition plays a crucial role in determining value. A stamp with bright original color, sharp perforations, fresh paper, and excellent centering will always be worth significantly more than one with creases, stains, tears, missing perforations, heavy cancellations, or faded ink. Even two stamps with identical catalog numbers can have very different market prices simply because one has superior centering and overall eye appeal. Now let's discuss the current market value of this historic stamp. If you own a used example with a normal postal cancellation and average condition, its market value today generally ranges from 50 cents to $3. Because the stamp was printed in large numbers, used examples remain affordable and are popular among beginner collectors who want to build a classic United States collection without spending a great deal of money. If your stamp is in mint condition with full original gum and has never been hinged, the value increases noticeably. Most mint examples in very fine condition sell between $5 and $25 depending on centering, freshness, gum quality, and demand. Collectors especially value stamps that have been carefully preserved in stamp albums for decades without exposure to moisture, sunlight, or improper handling. Centering is one of the most important grading factors. Many stamps printed during the early 20th century were not perfectly centered because of the printing and perforating equipment available at the time. A stamp with wide, even margins on all four sides and a perfectly centered design is much scarcer than one with uneven margins. Premium examples with outstanding centering can command several times the value of average copies. Collectors should also examine the stamp for unusual printing varieties. During production, small printing flaws occasionally occurred, creating collectible plate varieties, color shifts, paper irregularities, or engraving defects. Although most examples are standard issues, rare production errors are highly desirable and can increase the value dramatically. A genuine printing error that has been professionally authenticated may be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on its rarity and condition. Another important factor is whether the stamp remains attached to its original cover. A well-preserved envelope mailed during the Washington bicentennial celebrations, especially with a clear commemorative postmark dated 1932, often attracts much stronger collector interest than a loose stamp alone. Postal history collectors actively seek covers from significant historical events because they provide valuable insight into postal operations of the period. Professional grading has become increasingly important in today's philatelic market. Independent expert organizations carefully examine valuable stamps to verify authenticity and assign a condition grade. Certified examples with exceptional grades consistently sell for much higher prices because buyers have confidence in their authenticity and quality. High-grade certified examples of the 1932 Washington bicentennial stamp have achieved impressive auction results over the years, especially when perfectly centered and flawlessly preserved. As of today's collector market, an average used example generally sells between 50 cents and $3. Mint never-hinged examples commonly sell between $5 and $25. Exceptionally well-centered mint examples may bring $50 to $150. Certified examples with superb grades have sold for several $100s, while rare plate varieties, spectacular errors, or unique production anomalies have realized prices exceeding $1,000 at specialized philatelic auctions. Although such valuable examples are uncommon, they demonstrate how condition and rarity can transform an ordinary-looking stamp into an important collectible. If you discover this stamp in an old family collection, resist the temptation to clean it or improve its appearance. Cleaning, regumming, repairing tears, or altering perforations almost always reduces the value. Collectors prefer stamps that remain completely original, even if they show honest signs of age. Proper storage in acid-free stock books or archival quality albums will help preserve the stamp for future generations. The 1932 George Washington Bicentennial Series remains one of the cornerstones of United States stamp collecting. It combines outstanding engraving, historical importance, beautiful artistic portraits, and affordability, making it attractive to beginners and advanced collectors alike. Nearly every serious United States collection includes at least one example from this famous series, and many collectors strive to assemble the complete set of all 12 denominations. Completing the entire bicentennial series is considered an enjoyable and rewarding challenge within American philately. George Washington's legacy continues to inspire people around the world, and this commemorative stamp serves as a lasting tribute to his leadership, courage, and dedication to the founding of the United States. Every time collectors examine this small piece of engraved artwork, they are reminded of a remarkable chapter in American history and the important role that postage stamps play in preserving national heritage. Next up, the famous 1932 United States 1-cent George Washington bicentennial stamp. This beautiful green stamp is one of the most recognizable commemorative issues ever produced by the United States Post Office. Although millions of collectors have seen this stamp over the years, many people still do not realize that certain examples can be worth far more than their face value. In today's video, we will uncover the fascinating history behind this classic stamp, explain why it was issued, discuss the different varieties collectors should look for, and most importantly, reveal its current market value in today's stamp market. Make sure you watch until the end, because some rare versions and high-grade examples have sold for hundreds and even thousands of dollars. At major stamp auctions, the stamp featured in today's video was issued in 1932 to celebrate one of the most important anniversaries in American history, the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington. Born in 1732, George Washington became the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War and later served as the first President of the United States from 1789 to 1797. His leadership helped shape the new nation, and because of his extraordinary contribution to American history, the United States honored him with an impressive series of commemorative postage stamps during his bicentennial year. The stamp, shown here, carries a denomination of 1 cent and displays an elegant engraved portrait of George Washington facing right. The years 1732 and 1932 appear below the portrait, clearly indicating the bicentennial celebration. The design is framed by classical architectural columns, giving the stamp a formal and dignified appearance. At the top, the words United States Postage are beautifully engraved, while the denomination of 1 cent appears prominently in both lower corners. The green color was carefully selected to make the stamp easily recognizable while maintaining the classic appearance of United States definitive and commemorative issues from the early 20th century. This stamp was part of the famous Washington Bicentennial series, one of the most admired commemorative stamp issues ever released by the United States. The complete series included 12 different denominations, each featuring a unique portrait of George Washington based on historical paintings created during his lifetime. The 1 cent value was intended for specific domestic postal rates and became widely used throughout the United States during 1932. Because millions were printed, it remains one of the most collected classic American stamps today. Although this stamp is often considered common, experienced collectors know that its true value depends on several important factors. Not every 1 cent Washington Bicentennial stamp is worth the same amount. Small differences in condition, centering, gum, perforations, cancellations, and printing quality can make a significant difference in today's market value. Collectors spend years studying these details because a seemingly ordinary stamp may turn out to be a highly desirable example. One of the first things collectors examine is the overall condition. A stamp with bright original color, sharp engraving, complete perforations, fresh paper, and no creases or tears will always be worth considerably more than a damaged example. Even small faults such as thin spots, stains, missing perforations, heavy creases, or fading can reduce the market value substantially. Proper preservation is extremely important because stamps that remain in excellent condition for nearly a century become increasingly desirable with every passing year. Centering is another major factor that influences value. During the early 20th century, printing and perforating equipment was not always perfectly accurate. As a result, many stamps were printed with uneven margins. A perfectly centered stamp with equal white margins on all 4 sides is much scarcer than an off-center example. Professional collectors are often willing to pay several times more for a stamp that displays exceptional centering because it greatly enhances its appearance and rarity. Collectors also pay close attention to whether the stamp is mint or used. A used stamp has been through the postal system and carries a cancellation mark. A mint stamp has never been used for postage and still retains its original gum on the reverse side. Mint never-hinged examples are especially desirable because they have never been mounted in traditional stamp albums using stamp hinges. Original gum in pristine condition can greatly increase a stamp's value among serious collectors. Now let's discuss the current market value of this beautiful stamp. In today's philatelic market, a typical used example with average centering and an ordinary cancellation generally sells for between 25 cents and $2. Because millions of copies were printed, most used examples remain affordable and are excellent additions to beginner collections. If the stamp is in mint condition with original gum and has never been hinged, its value usually ranges between $5 and $30 depending on overall quality and centering. Collectors are always willing to pay more for stamps that have survived in fresh original condition without damage or alterations. Mint examples with vibrant color and exceptional eye appeal remain popular at stamp shows and online auctions around the world. Exceptionally well-centered mint examples can command significantly higher prices. A stamp graded as very fine or extremely fine by professional grading organizations may sell for $50, $100, or even several $100s, depending on the assigned grade. Superb examples are surprisingly scarce because relatively few stamps have survived nearly a century in flawless condition. Another exciting area of collecting involves plate varieties and printing errors. During production, occasional mistakes occurred that created unusual collectible varieties. These include misplaced perforations, color shifts, double impressions, plate cracks, missing design elements, or other production anomalies. Genuine errors that have been authenticated by recognized expertising. Organizations are highly sought after and can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their rarity and condition. Collectors should also pay attention to postal history. A 1-cent Washington bicentennial stamp still attached to its original envelope with a clear 1932 cancellation may be worth more than a loose stamp. Covers mailed during Washington bicentennial celebrations. First-day covers, and envelopes bearing commemorative postmarks are especially popular among postal history collectors because they preserve an authentic piece of American mailing history. Professional certification has become increasingly important in today's stamp market. Expert organizations carefully examine valuable stamps to verify authenticity, identify the correct variety, and assign a numerical condition grade. Certified examples inspire confidence among buyers and usually achieve much stronger auction prices than uncertified material. When a rare variety is professionally certified, its market value often increases substantially because collectors know they are purchasing an authentic example. As of today's collector market, most ordinary used examples sell for approximately 25 cents to $2. Mint never-hinged examples generally range from $5 to $30. Premium quality mint examples with excellent centering often bring $50 to $200. Certified superb grade examples may exceed $500, while rare printing errors, unusual varieties, and exceptional auction quality pieces have realized prices from $1,000 to well over $5,000, depending on rarity and demand. If you own this stamp, take a few minutes to examine it carefully under good lighting using a magnifying glass. Look closely at the perforations, centering, paper quality, gum condition, cancellation, and overall appearance. Compare it with specialized stamp catalogs to determine whether it belongs to a scarce variety. Many valuable discoveries have been made by collectors who took the time to study what initially appeared to be an ordinary stamp. One important rule for every collector is never attempt to clean, bleach, repair, or regum an old stamp. Professional collectors and dealers can usually recognize alterations immediately, and repaired stamps almost always sell for much less than original examples. Keeping a stamp in its untouched original condition is always the safest way to preserve its long-term value. The 1932 George Washington bicentennial stamps continue to hold a special place in American philately because they combine historical importance, artistic beauty, exceptional engraving, and affordable collecting opportunities. Whether you are a beginner starting your first collection or an experienced philatelist building an advanced United States exhibit, this stamp represents an important chapter in the story of American postal history. Nearly every serious United States collection includes at least one example from this famous bicentennial series. Every postage stamp carries more than just a postal value. It represents history, culture, craftsmanship, and the stories of the people who used it. This 1-cent George Washington bicentennial stamp reminds us of America's founding, celebrates one of the nation's greatest leaders, and continues to inspire collectors nearly a century after it was first issued. Its timeless design and historical significance ensure that it will remain one of the most admired United States stamps for generations to come. Thank you for watching Stamps Old World UK. I truly hope you enjoyed learning about the history, identification, and current market value of the 1932 United States George Washington bicentennial 1-cent stamp. If you found this video helpful and informative, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Stamps Old World UK, and press the notification bell so you never miss our future videos featuring rare stamps, valuable collections, hidden philatelic treasures, expert identification guides, auction results, and updated market values from around the world. Your support helps this channel continue bringing the fascinating world of stamp collecting to collectors everywhere. Thank you once again for watching. Happy collecting, stay safe, and I will see you in the next exciting episode of Stamps Old World UK. Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK. Today we are exploring one of the most famous and valuable classic stamps ever issued in the history of Philately. If you love rare stamps, hidden treasures, and the incredible stories behind historic postal issues, then you are going to enjoy today's video. Make sure you watch until the end because we will discuss the history of this remarkable stamp, how to identify it, why collectors pay extraordinary prices for it, and what its estimated market value is in today's stamp market. Let's begin. The stamp you are looking at is one of the legendary stamps of the United States, the 5-cent Franklin stamp from the 1847 issue. This was the very first official postage stamp series ever issued by the United States Postal Service. Released on July 1, 1847, this stamp features a portrait of Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, a brilliant inventor, scientist, diplomat, and the nation's first postmaster general. Because of Franklin's enormous contribution to the American postal system, he was chosen to appear on America's very first postage stamp. The United States had relied on handwritten postal markings and prepaid letters before 1847. However, following the success of Great Britain's famous penny black issued in 1840, the United States decided to introduce adhesive postage stamps that customers could purchase and attach to their letters before mailing them. This marked a revolutionary moment in American postal history. The first series consisted of only 2 stamps. The 5-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp paid the postage rate for letters traveling up to 300 miles, while the 10-cent George Washington stamp covered letters traveling longer distances. Although millions of these stamps were printed, surviving examples in excellent condition have become extremely scarce. During the 19th century, people rarely collected stamps. Most letters were opened and the stamps were thrown away. As a result, very few examples survived with fresh color, wide margins, and no damage. Collectors today compete fiercely for high-quality specimens, making this one of the most desirable classic American stamps. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1847 Franklin stamp is its printing process. Unlike modern stamps produced using sophisticated machinery, these early stamps were printed using engraved steel plates. Every detail of Benjamin Franklin's portrait was carefully engraved by master craftsmen. The intricate lines, elegant lettering, and beautiful oval frame demonstrate the extraordinary skill of 19th-century engravers. Even after more than 175 years, collectors continue to admire the artistic beauty of this stamp. When examining one of these stamps, experts pay close attention to several important factors. First is the condition of the paper. Any tears, folds, stains, or repairs can significantly reduce value. Second is the quality of the margins. Since these early stamps were printed without perforations, they had to be cut apart by hand using scissors. Stamps with 4 large, complete margins are much rarer than examples where the design has been cut into. Third is the cancellation. Some collectors prefer lightly canceled stamps where Benjamin Franklin's portrait remains clearly visible, while others seek completely unused examples with original gum, although these are exceptionally rare. Another important factor affecting value is authenticity. Because these stamps are so valuable, many forgeries and reproductions have appeared over the past century. Professional collectors almost always submit expensive examples to recognized expertising organizations for authentication. A genuine certificate confirming authenticity can greatly increase buyer confidence and market value. The stamp shown in today's video appears to be the famous 5-cent Benjamin Franklin from the 1847 issue. Based solely on a photograph, it is impossible to guarantee authenticity or determine the exact grade. Professional examination is always required before assigning a final value. Small details such as paper type, ink color, margins, repairs, thinning, or hidden faults cannot be evaluated accurately from an image alone. Now let's discuss what collectors really want to know. What is this stamp worth in today's market? The answer depends almost entirely on condition and authenticity. A genuine used example with average margins and ordinary cancellation typically sells between $250 and $900. Better examples with attractive margins and clear impressions often bring between $1,000 and $3,500. Very fine examples with 4 complete margins, excellent centering, and attractive cancellations frequently sell for $5,000 to $15,000 at major stamp auctions. Unused original examples are much scarcer. A genuine unused stamp with original gum can easily reach $20,000, $40,000, or even more depending on its quality. Exceptional museum-quality examples with outstanding margins and perfect preservation have sold for well over $100,000 in prestigious international auctions. The finest known examples continue to appreciate because advanced collectors and investors recognize their historical importance. Another fascinating aspect of the stamp market is how demand has remained remarkably strong despite changes in technology. Although people rarely use traditional letters today, the world's interest in classic stamps continues to grow. Serious collectors view these historic stamps as miniature works of art, historical documents, and long-term collectible investments. Major auction houses regularly attract bidders from the United States, Europe, Asia, and Australia who compete for rare 19th century stamps like this one. One reason these stamps remain so desirable is their historical significance. This small piece of paper witnessed the early development of the American Postal Service. It traveled on letters during a period when the United States was expanding rapidly across the continent. Every surviving example tells a story. Some carried business correspondence between merchants. Others delivered family news across hundreds of miles. Many traveled by horseback, railroad, or steamship. Every crease, cancellation, and postal marking connects the stamp to a real moment in history. Collectors often spend years searching for a high-quality example because no two stamps are exactly alike. Each hand-cut margin is unique. Each cancellation tells a different postal story. Each surviving example has followed its own journey through generations of collectors before reaching today's marketplace. If you believe you own one of these stamps, do not clean it, soak it, trim the margins, or attempt any restoration. Even well-intentioned cleaning can permanently reduce its value. Store it safely in a protective stamp mount or archival stock book and seek evaluation from an experienced philatelic expert. A professional certificate may reveal that your stamp is worth far more than you expected. For beginners entering the fascinating world of stamp collecting, this stamp serves as a perfect example of how rarity, history, condition, and demand work together to determine market value. A stamp is not valuable simply because it is old. Thousands of old stamps are worth only a few cents. True value comes from rarity, historical importance, collector demand, authenticity, and outstanding preservation. The 1847 Benjamin Franklin stamp meets all of these criteria, making it one of the cornerstones of classic United States philately. The market for rare stamps continues to evolve every year. International auctions, online marketplaces, specialized dealers, and philatelic exhibitions all contribute to current pricing. As wealthy collectors compete for the finest examples, prices for certified high-grade stamps continue to remain strong. While average examples may be affordable for beginning collectors, premium specimens remain among the most sought-after treasures in the philatelic world. Imagine holding in your hands a small piece of paper printed nearly 2 centuries ago that survived wars, economic crises, changing governments, and countless owners. That is part of the magic of stamp collecting. Every rare stamp connects us directly to history in a way few other collectibles can. It is not just ink on paper. It is a preserved fragment of the past. Next up, we are taking a close look at another legendary classic stamp that has become one of the greatest treasures in American philately. If you are passionate about rare stamps, fascinating postal history, and discovering the real market value of historic collectibles, then you are in the right place. Stay with me until the end, because today we will explore the remarkable story behind this famous stamp. Learn what makes it so valuable, discover how collectors identify genuine examples, and reveal its estimated market value in today's international stamp market. This is a stamp that has captured the attention of collectors for more than 175 years, and its story is every bit as impressive as its value. The stamp featured in today's video is the famous United States 5-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp from the historic 1847 first issue. This black-colored version is among the earliest postage stamps ever issued by the United States and represents the birth of the American postal stamp system. Released on July 1st, 1847, this stamp carries the portrait of Benjamin Franklin, one of the most respected figures in American history. Franklin was not only a founding father of the United States, but also an inventor, scientist, diplomat, author, printer, and, most importantly for postal history, the first Postmaster General of the United States. His contribution to organizing and improving the postal system made him the perfect choice to appear on America's very first postage stamp. Before this historic issue, Americans usually paid postage in cash at the post office, and postal clerks marked letters by hand. The introduction of adhesive postage stamps completely changed the mailing system. It made sending letters faster, easier, and more efficient. Inspired by Great Britain's successful penny black of 1840, the United States officially entered the modern postal era with only 2 stamps. The 5-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp was intended for letters traveling up to 300 miles, while the 10-cent George Washington stamp paid postage for longer distances. These 2 simple stamps marked the beginning of an extraordinary chapter in American postal history. Looking closely at this stamp, collectors immediately recognize the beautiful engraved portrait of Benjamin Franklin surrounded by an elegant oval frame. The words U.S. Post Office curve across the top, while 5 cents is clearly printed at the bottom. Every tiny engraved line was carefully carved into a steel printing plate by master engravers of the 19th century. Unlike modern printing methods, steel engraving created sharp, detailed images that remain beautiful even after nearly 2 centuries. This extraordinary craftsmanship is one of the reasons collectors admire these early stamps as miniature works of art. Although hundreds of thousands of these stamps were originally printed, surviving examples in excellent condition are surprisingly rare today. During the 1840s and 1850s, stamp collecting had not yet become a popular hobby. Most people simply threw away envelopes after reading their letters. As a result, only a small percentage of these stamps survived. Many remaining examples have faults such as thin spots, tears, creases, faded ink, heavy cancellations, or damaged margins. Finding a well-preserved example with 4 complete margins is becoming increasingly difficult, which greatly increases collector demand. One interesting feature of this issue is that it was produced without perforations. Today we are accustomed to stamps with perforated edges that tear apart easily, but early stamps had to be cut apart individually using scissors or knives. Because of this manual cutting process, many surviving examples have uneven or narrow margins. Collectors pay significantly higher prices for examples that retain wide margins on all 4 sides because they are much scarcer than stamps cut close to the design. Authentication plays an extremely important role in determining value. Since the 1847 Benjamin Franklin stamp is highly desirable, many counterfeit copies, reproductions, and altered examples have appeared over the years. Experienced collectors never rely solely on appearance. Instead, they seek certificates from respected philatelic expertising organizations that verify authenticity, identify any repairs, and confirm the stamp's condition. A certified genuine example almost always commands a stronger selling price than an uncertified one. When professional graders evaluate this stamp, they carefully examine numerous characteristics. They inspect the quality of the engraving, the freshness of the ink, the centering of the design, the width of the margins, the paper quality, the cancellation, and whether the stamp has any hidden repairs or alterations. Even the smallest defect can reduce value, while exceptional preservation can increase the price dramatically. Now let's discuss the question every collector wants answered. What is the current market value of this remarkable stamp in today's collecting world? If the stamp is genuine and used with average condition, typical market prices generally range between $300 and $1,000 US. Examples with attractive appearance, stronger margins, and lighter cancellations often sell for between $1,500 and $5,000. Very fine examples with 4 large margins and excellent eye appeal frequently achieve prices from $6,000 to $15,000 during major philatelic auctions. Unused examples are substantially rarer because very few people saved stamps in mint condition during the 1840s. A genuine unused example without significant faults can easily sell for $20,000 to $50,000 US. Exceptionally rare specimens with original gum, outstanding centering, and certification from leading philatelic experts have sold for well over $100,000. The very finest examples remain among the most valuable classic United States stamps ever offered at auction and continue attracting serious collectors from around the world. It is important to understand that no collector or dealer can accurately determine a stamp's value from a photograph alone. The image shown in today's video strongly resembles the famous 1847 Benjamin Franklin issue, but only a hands-on examination can confirm authenticity and condition. Hidden repairs, paper thickness, gum condition, watermarks, and other important characteristics require professional inspection. Therefore, the values discussed today represent realistic market ranges for genuine examples, rather than guaranteed selling prices for the exact stamp shown. The global market for rare classic stamps remains remarkably active. Collectors from North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and many other regions continue competing for important 19th century postal history. International auction houses regularly feature classic United States material, and demand for certified high-quality examples remains consistently strong. Many investors also appreciate rare stamps because they combine history, rarity, beauty, and long-term collectability in a single item. Beyond financial value, this stamp possesses extraordinary historical importance. Every surviving example has witnessed nearly 2 centuries of history. It may have traveled on a business letter during America's westward expansion, delivered important family news across hundreds of miles, or carried official government correspondence. Imagine the countless hands that handled this tiny piece of paper before it reached today's collectors. Every cancellation tells part of its journey, and every surviving stamp preserves a unique connection to the 19th century. For new collectors entering the world of philately, this stamp offers an important lesson. Age alone does not determine value. Many old stamps are quite common and inexpensive. True value depends on rarity, demand, historical significance, condition, authenticity, and overall eye appeal. The 1847 Benjamin Franklin stamp scores exceptionally well in all these categories, which explains why it continues to rank among the greatest treasures of American stamp collecting. If you believe you have inherited or discovered one of these stamps, handle it carefully. Never attempt to clean it, trim its margins, remove its cancellation, or repair any damage. Even minor alterations can permanently reduce collector value. Store it in an archival quality stamp mount and consult a reputable philatelic expert for authentication. A professional certificate can make a significant difference when selling a valuable classic stamp. Collectors often spend decades searching for a truly exceptional example because every stamp is unique. Some have beautifully centered designs. Others display unusually wide margins. Some have rare postal cancellations or fascinating historical provenance. These individual characteristics make stamp collecting both exciting and rewarding, as no 2 collections are exactly alike. As interest in historical collectibles continues growing worldwide, legendary classics such as the 1847 Benjamin Franklin stamp remain highly respected by museums, investors, historians, and advanced philatelists. Their rarity cannot increase because no new genuine examples will ever be printed. Every year, the surviving population becomes slightly smaller due to accidents, damage, and permanent loss, making outstanding examples increasingly desirable. Next up, we are exploring a fascinating United States commemorative stamp that celebrates one of the greatest literary figures in human history, William Shakespeare. If you enjoy rare stamps, postal history, famous personalities, and discovering how much collectible stamps are worth in today's market, then you are in the right place. Stay with me until the end, because today we will uncover the history behind this beautiful stamp, explain why it was issued, discuss its design and collectability, and reveal its estimated market value in today's international stamp market. Whether you are an experienced philatelist or just beginning your stamp collecting journey, this is a stamp with an incredible story that deserves a place in every collection. The stamp featured in today's video is the United States 5-cent William Shakespeare commemorative stamp. Issued in 1964 to honor the 400th anniversary of the birth of William Shakespeare, who was born in 1564. Shakespeare is widely regarded as the greatest playwright and poet in the English language. His remarkable works, including Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, Julius Caesar, and many more, have influenced literature, theater, education, and culture across the world for more than 4 centuries. To celebrate this historic milestone, the United States Post Office Department issued this elegant, commemorative stamp as part of the worldwide tribute to Shakespeare's extraordinary legacy. One of the first things collectors notice about this stamp is its impressive artistic design. Unlike many ordinary commemorative stamps, this issue resembles a decorative Renaissance monument. The portrait of William Shakespeare stands proudly in the center, wearing traditional Elizabethan clothing with his famous high collar. Above his portrait appears the inscription, United States, while below is his name Shakespeare, accompanied by the dates 1564-1964, marking 400 years since his birth. The denomination of 5 cents is displayed prominently at the bottom, representing the standard first-class postage rate during that period. A particularly interesting detail is the decorative border surrounding Shakespeare's portrait. The ornate architectural frame gives the stamp a dramatic theatrical appearance, reflecting the grand stages where Shakespeare's plays have been performed for centuries. Another striking feature is the small skull placed beside Shakespeare, a symbolic reference to one of the most famous scenes in literary history from Hamlet, where the character holds the skull of Yorick while delivering one of the greatest speeches ever written. This subtle artistic element makes the stamp even more meaningful for literature enthusiasts. The stamp was produced using high-quality engraving, a printing method admired by collectors for its exceptional detail and elegance. Every fold of Shakespeare's clothing, every facial feature, and every decorative ornament is rendered with remarkable precision. Even decades after its release, collectors continue to admire the craftsmanship involved in producing this beautiful commemorative issue. It remains one of the finest, literary-themed stamps ever issued by the United States. The 1964 Shakespeare commemorative was printed in very large quantities because it was intended for everyday postal use during the anniversary celebrations. Millions of Americans used these stamps to send letters throughout the country and around the world. Because of this high production, many examples have survived, making the stamp relatively affordable for beginning collectors. However, despite its availability, it remains an important historical issue because of its cultural significance and attractive design. Collectors evaluate this stamp based on several important characteristics. The first is condition. A stamp with fresh color, sharp perforations, clean paper, and no creases or stains will always command a stronger price than one showing signs of damage. Centering is another important factor. Examples where the design is perfectly centered within the perforated margins are much more desirable than poorly centered copies. Collectors also examine the quality of the cancellation on used examples. A light, neat cancellation that leaves Shakespeare's portrait clearly visible is generally preferred over heavy postal. Markings mint never hinged examples are especially popular among collectors because they preserve the original gum, exactly as issued by the post office. Stamps that have never been mounted in an album usually receive higher prices than hinged examples. Some collectors also seek complete panes, plate blocks, first-day covers, and official presentation items related to this issue, which can be worth considerably more than a single stamp, depending on their rarity and condition. Now let us discuss the current market value of this historic commemorative stamp. Because millions were printed, an ordinary used example typically sells for between 25 cents and $2, depending on its condition and appearance. A mint example with original gum generally sells for $1 to $5. Perfectly centered mint never hinged examples graded by professional philatelic organizations can sell for $10 to $30, while exceptionally high-grade certified. Examples may occasionally reach $50 to over $100 due to their outstanding quality. Collectors, Should also be aware that special formats of this issue often bring higher prices. Plate blocks in excellent condition may sell for $10 to $40, while complete sheets preserved in pristine condition can be worth $50 to several $100s, particularly if they are professionally stored and free from damage. Official first-day covers bearing this stamp usually sell between $5 and $25, depending on cachet design, cancellation quality, and overall presentation. Although this stamp is not considered rare in terms of production numbers, its importance lies in its subject matter. William Shakespeare remains one of the most celebrated writers in world history, and stamps honoring him are collected not only by philatelists but also by literature enthusiasts, theater historians, educators, and thematic collectors specializing in famous people, authors, or performing arts. This broad appeal helps maintain steady collector demand even decades after its original release. The stamp shown in today's video appears to include a visible stock image watermark, which suggests that the image itself comes from a catalog or online marketplace. The watermark is not part of the original stamp design. If you own a genuine physical copy without a watermark and it matches the official 1964 issue, its value will depend on condition, centering, gum, and whether it has been professionally graded. One of the reasons stamp collecting remains such an enjoyable hobby is that not every valuable stamp needs to cost thousands of dollars. Affordable commemorative issues like this Shakespeare stamp allow collectors to own beautiful pieces of history without spending a fortune. Every stamp tells a story, and this one celebrates the life and influence of a man whose words continue to inspire readers and audiences around the world more than 400 years after his birth, as interest in thematic stamp collecting continues to grow. Literary subjects remain among the most popular categories. Collectors enjoy building albums dedicated to famous authors, poets, playwrights, philosophers, and historical figures. The Shakespeare Commemorative fits perfectly into these collections and serves as a reminder of the close connection between culture, education, and postal history. If you own this stamp, store it properly in an acid-free stockbook or protective mount. Avoid touching the printed surface with your fingers, keep it away from moisture and direct sunlight, and never attempt to clean or repair it. Proper storage helps preserve its condition and ensures that future generations can continue to appreciate its beauty. Thank you for joining me today on Stamps Old World UK as we explored the beautiful 1964 United States 5-cent William Shakespeare commemorative stamp. While it may not be among the rarest stamps ever issued, it is undoubtedly one of the most elegant literary commemoratives in American philately. Its artistic design, historical significance, and connection to one of the world's greatest writers make it a wonderful addition to any stamp collection. If you enjoyed today's video, please support Stamps Old World UK by subscribing to the channel, giving this video a like, and sharing it with fellow stamp collectors, literature lovers, and history enthusiasts. Don't forget to leave a comment below telling us whether you own this Shakespeare stamp or which classic stamp you would like to see featured in our next episode. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep collecting, keep discovering, and remember that every stamp is a small piece of history with a story waiting to be told.